I've done a lot of crazy things and I've had a lot of accomplishments in my life.
Imagine the one thing that defines you, the one thing that has built your entire career and legacy, is the skill in your hands. Now imagine that being threatened in a horrifying instant. For Buddy Valastro, the cake boss, this wasn't a nightmare, it was reality. This isn't just a story about a freak accident. It's a story about what happens when the cameras stop rolling, when a massive personality is forced to face the idea that everything he's ever worked for could be gone. You definitely remember Buddy Valastro, the loud, passionate, fourth-generation baker who brought the beautiful chaos of Carlo's Bakery into our homes. He was the one and only cake boss, a guy who could magically turn flour and sugar into a life-sized car or a fire-breathing dragon. For years, he was all over our screens, the king of cakes. And then, he just kind of vanished. The show's original run ended, the spotlight moved on, and you might have thought that was it. But the real story of what happened to Buddy Valastro is more dramatic, terrifying, and in the end, more inspiring than any cake he ever baked. It's a story of a devastating accident, a brutal recovery, and an incredible transformation that saw him rise from the edge of professional ruin to build an even bigger empire. This is him now that it all happened at home. The one place he should have been the safest. The Valastro family home in Montville, New Jersey, has its own private bowling alley, a pretty sweet perk of a life built on hard work and TV money. It was a place for family fun and relaxation. But in September 2020, it turned into a scene of absolute horror. The pin setter, the machine that resets the bowling pins, was acting up. Buddy, being a hands-on guy, went to fix it, just like he'd fix a broken oven at the bakery. But this time, something went horribly wrong. His right hand, his dominant hand, the one that had piped miles of buttercream and sculpted countless sugar flowers, got trapped. A blunt, 1.5-inch metal rod drove right into his hand, impaling it between his ring and middle finger. Then, it happened again. And again. The machine, stuck in its cycle, punctured his hand 3 separate times. He was stuck, pinned to the machine for over 5 agonizing minutes as it crushed the delicate bones, nerves, and tendons inside. The panic was instant. He later recalled the terrifying thought he had while driving to the hospital with a spike still stuck in his hand: I am like a high-level athlete in what I do. If I could not make cakes to the level of being in the major leagues, a part of me would have died. I was scared. The world knew him as the cake boss. But if he couldn't use his hands, was he still the cake boss? Was he even Buddy Valastro anymore? But before the accident that almost took it all, there was the empire that hand built. To really get how devastating this was, you have to remember just how famous he became. For millions of people, Buddy Valastro wasn't just a baker, he was the baker. When Cake Boss * first aired on TLC in 2009, it was a total phenomenon. It was more than a baking show, it was a reality sitcom set in a loud, old-school Italian-American bakery in Hoboken, New Jersey. The original Carlo's Bake Shop was bought by Buddy's father, Bartolo Valastro Sr., in 1964. Buddy started working there when he was just 11. But tragedy hit early. When Buddy was 17, his father passed away, and the entire family legacy landed right on his shoulders. He dropped out of high school to become the man of the house and keep the bakery running. This forged a work ethic in him that was just relentless. He often worked from dawn until midnight, determined to make his father proud. That he dreamed of taking his father's classic recipes and turning them into works of art nobody had ever seen. He told Vanity Fair, "I wanted to be creative. If I can make cakes that don't look like normal cakes, but taste the way my dad's cakes tasted, then I might be onto something." This drive led him to Food Network competitions, where his wild, sculpted cakes got him noticed by TV producers. Cake Boss * was lightning in a bottle. It was a show about cake, sure, but it was really a show about family. You had Buddy, the passionate, often frazzled leader, his wife Lisa, and his four loud, distinct sisters, Grace, Madalena, Lisa, and Mary. The family arguments, the pranks, the laughter, and the tears were just as important as the baking, and those cakes were legendary. They weren't just desserts, they were feats of engineering. A life-sized NASCAR? A detailed replica of St. Louis? A spinning carousel? Every week, Buddy and his team defied gravity and created edible masterpieces. Carlo's Bakery went from a local favorite to an international tourist hotspot with lines wrapping around the block. The show was a global hit, making Buddy Valastro a household name and a true icon of the American dream, but even at the peak of his fame, life wasn't always sweet. The show's success brought crushing pressure. Filming nearly year-round while running a business that was exploding in popularity was a massive weight to carry. He wasn't just a baker anymore, he was a CEO, a TV star, and a global brand. The family dynamics that were so charming on TV were also a real source of stress when the lines between work and home completely vanished. The biggest challenge, though, was a deeply personal one. In 2012, Buddy's mother, Mary Valastro, the family's matriarch and a beloved figure on the show, was diagnosed with ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. Her difficult and painful battle with the illness was shared with raw honesty on the show. Fans who had fallen in love with Mama Mary watched as her health declined. Her death in 2017 was a devastating blow to the Valastro family, especially Buddy. His mother was his rock and his inspiration. Her passing left a huge hole that no amount of success could ever fill. It was a profound loss that changed the family forever. Around the same time, the TV world was changing too. After an amazing run, the original Cake Boss series ended its time on TLC and Discovery Family in 2020. While Buddy was still on TV with other shows, the end of the one that started it all felt like the end of an era. For many people, the Cake Boss began to fade from the spotlight. He was navigating a new, quieter chapter, with no idea that the biggest fight of his life was just around the corner. Let's go back to that day in September 2020. When Buddy put his hand into the bowling pin setter, he couldn't have known the horror that would follow. His hand was trapped and crushed inside the machine, and he was completely unable to pull it free as a metal rod, an inch and a half thick, plunged through his hand 3 times between his middle and ring fingers. The pain was one thing, but the helplessness was terrifying. He was pinned, bleeding, and watching his own hand get destroyed. The whole gruesome scene was witnessed by his sons, Buddy Jr. and Marco. It was their quick thinking that saved him. While their dad was trapped, the teenagers raced to grab a reciprocating saw and, with unbelievable composure, cut through the metal rod to free him. He was rushed to the hospital, where the full extent of the damage was horrifyingly clear. The rod had caused massive trauma, shredding the nerves and muscles essential for his delicate cake work. The initial diagnosis was grim. Doctors, including the renowned hand surgeon Dr. Michelle Carlson, weren't sure what his future would hold. They warned him that he might never get full use of his dominant right hand again. For Buddy, this news was a potential death sentence for his career. His entire identity was tied to his hands. He told people, "I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to ice a cake the same way or be as fast as I used to be. That's still to be discovered, and not knowing kind of sucks." He was facing the real possibility that his life as one of the world's most famous bakers was over. The Cake Boss was broken, and his future was filled with fear. Getting back from that injury was an absolute battle, and it shows you just how determined Buddy Valastro is. It started with one surgery. Then another, and another. In total, Buddy went through 5 separate, complex surgeries on his hand to repair the catastrophic damage. For months, he could barely use it, struggling with simple things like buttoning a shirt. The physical recovery was only half of it. The psychological toll was huge. For a man defined by his hands-on control, this loss of function was terrifying. He admitted he was scared, especially after one surgery left him unable to bend his hand at all, a critical function for a baker. His recovery was a team effort. He gives huge credit to his surgeon, Dr. Michelle Carlson, and his occupational therapist, for nursing him back to health. Therapy was a humbling and grueling process, starting with basic exercises like picking up tiny pegs to retrain his fingers. He even started practicing piping with his left hand, just in case. Through it all, his family was his anchor. His wife, Lisa, and his 4 kids rallied around him, giving him the support he needed to keep going. This ordeal wasn't just his crisis, it was a family crisis. Their love was the foundation he used to rebuild himself, mentally and physically. The injury forced a profound change in him. He was no longer the invincible boss who could do it all. He had to learn to delegate and to lead in a new way. The accident, as awful as it was, sparked a shift in his perspective. It forced him to move from being the hands-on artist to being the visionary CEO. After 2 years of relentless work, he regained about 95% of his hand's function, a result that doctors called a miracle. While his hand was healing, Buddy Valastro's ambition sure wasn't. The injury that threatened to end his career actually became the spark for his biggest professional evolution. Since he couldn't be on the bakery floor sculpting for hours, he was forced to focus on the big picture. He didn't just recover, he reinvented himself. The cake boss became the cake CEO, and the Valastro brand exploded. His restaurant business boomed. Buddy V's Ristorante in Las Vegas became a staple, followed by other Vegas spots like Pizza Cake and the Boss Cafe. In 2024, he brought it all back to his home state, opening Buddy's Boardwalk Empire at Harrah's Resort in Atlantic City, a massive food hall combining his best concepts. But maybe his most brilliant move was figuring out how to get his cakes to everyone, everywhere. He launched a nationwide shipping service. Then came the cake ATMs, over 75 high-tech, refrigerated vending machines in places like airports and casinos across the US and Canada, selling fresh slices of Carlo's bakery cake 24/7. He didn't stop there. In 2023, he launched a massive partnership with Walmart, creating a line of Everybody's Cakes. And these aren't just licensed products. Buddy's own 100,000 square foot facility produces the cakes to his standards. He also launched virtual brands like Buddy V's Cake Slice for delivery apps. The scale of his operation now is staggering. He employs over 1,000 people and his company produces an average of 12,500 cakes a day. The man who was terrified he'd never ice a cake again was now running a multifaceted, international food and media conglomerate. The injury had forced him to let go with his hands, and in doing so, he was able to grab hold of a much bigger vision for his empire. Buddy's story of turning a horrifying setback into a period of massive growth is an incredible lesson in resilience. If you find stories like this inspiring and want to see more deep dives into the journeys of the personalities who shaped our culture, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a video. Now, what about the family that was at the center of it all? After taking a much-needed break from the TV grind to focus on his health and family, Buddy Valastro was ready for a comeback. But this wasn't just a reboot of Cake Boss. In 2023, he launched 2 brand new series on the A&E network, Legends of the Fork and, most importantly, Buddy Valastro's Cake Dynasty, Cake Dynasty is the next chapter. While the show still has the insane, over-the-top cakes he's famous for, the focus has shifted. The series now pulls back the curtain on the business side of his massive empire, the strategy, the logistics, and the pressure of running a global brand. More than that, the show is about legacy. A huge theme of Cake Dynasty is passing the torch. Buddy's 4 kids, Sophia, Buddy Jr., Marco, and Carlo, are young adults now and are featured heavily as they start finding their places in the family business. Buddy has always dreamed of his children taking over, but he insists he wants them to choose that path because they love it, not because they have to. The show explores this new dynamic with real honesty. You see his son, Buddy Jr., wrestling with whether to go to college or jump right into the business. You see his daughter Sophia designing her own cakes. It shows a father guiding his children, teaching them the lessons he learned the hard way, and figuring out how to be both a dad and a boss. The family we all fell in love with years ago is still there, but they're all grown up. The chaos is still there, but now it's the chaos of a thriving, multi-generational dynasty figuring out its future. When you look at Buddy Valastro's journey, it's a quintessential story of tragedy and triumph. He started as a kid forced into huge responsibility, a fourth-generation baker who turned a small family shop into a global brand. He hit the peak of fame as the loud, lovable, and incredibly talented cake boss we all knew. Then came the fall, not a slow decline, but a sudden, violent accident that plunged him into total uncertainty. The gruesome injury that nearly cost him his hand, his livelihood, and his identity could have been the end of his story. For a lot of people, it would have been, but for Buddy, it was a rebirth. Stripped of his most important tool, he was forced to become something more. He evolved from a master baker into a master strategist, an entrepreneur who saw a bigger picture. His empire didn't just survive his injury, it exploded because of it. From restaurants in Vegas and Atlantic City to cake vending machines and a massive Walmart partnership, he built a diversified business empire valued at an estimated $10 million. Today, Buddy Valastro is more than a survivor, he's a symbol of pure resilience. He's back on our screens, not just as the character he once was, but as the patriarch of a true cake dynasty, guiding his children into the business he fought so hard to save. His hands, though scarred, are working again, a testament to his unbreakable will. His legacy is no longer just written in buttercream and fondant. It's a story of perseverance, of a man who faced the end of his world.